Hey everybody, this is Mike and my wife
Brandi.
And Pastor Gary wanted us to kind of give a testimonial about our lives. So real quick, I grew up in the Bay Area here in Northern California. Grew up going to a Catholic church. Went to Catholic school when I was a kid. A couple of years over at St. Patrick's in Rodeo. Childhood was pretty normal. Two younger brothers. When let's see here, when I was about 9 years old, my youngest brother David, he was about 2. Got into our backyard and he drowned in our swimming pool in our backyard, and that was really traumatic for my family and I. And that was pretty much, I would say, the beginning of the end for my parents' marriage. My dad sunk real deep into alcoholism and drug addiction. My mother, it was really rough. So by the time I was 13, my father had checked himself into a drug facility, and he's now clean and sober to this day. So that's really, really great. And then that kind of started off for me. They ended up getting divorced right after that. I got moved around a lot, a bunch of different schools in the Bay Area, and I, found myself hanging out with the party crowd, underage drinking and experimenting with drugs and stuff like that. And as I started getting a little older through high school, I really dove into that addictive personality and that addiction lifestyle, and it got really, really bad. And I know some of you older saints that are in the church here today still, I know that you guys were interceding and praying for me through all of that, and I just want to say thank you, because God is so good to take me from a place like that to where I am today. It's just wonderful. But anyways, after high school, I really dove even deeper, and by the time I was 20, I found myself staring down a long prison sentence, and for a crime that I had committed. By the time it was all said and done, I had a reduced sentence. I only ended up having to do a year in the county jail. When I got out, the day I got out, there was to back up a little bit, there was a pastor that from our old church that would come and visit me in jail like twice a week for the longest time, and I got to know him pretty well. And he took me, the day I got out, he took me over to a 12-step recovery program. And I went over there and I spent another 6 months in there working on, getting free from addiction and all that. And that's where I had kind of found my relationship with the Lord again. And after that, moved back in with my dad, living in Vallejo. Started, really realizing that at 21 now, I wanted to have a family and kind of, enter the next stage of my life. So I started praying. I started praying for my wife. I didn't know who it was. I wasn't dating or anything like that. Then all of a sudden, one day, my mom invites me to come down and have lunch down at the Embers. And I went down there and I saw this vision of beauty working at the Embers. And that was obviously Brandi. Went down there, ended up becoming a regular, one of those weird guys that would sit at the counter and just drink coffee all afternoon and talk with all of the waitresses. But it worked, because she ended up asking me out on a date, and a year later we ended up getting married. So, God is so good to have brought me through first accepting the Lord when I was a young teenager. Maybe I left that part out earlier. Accepting the Lord as a young teenager, and then really falling away and just diving deep and totally turning my back on God, to where it took a traumatic event in my life to bring me back to the Lord. And I got to tell you that from that point on, there's so many other things that have happened since my wife and been married, and we'll touch on that in a little bit. It's just seeing how the Lord delivered me from addiction, and He redeemed me through the crime that I committed and going to jail, and now working in a government agency and having all this grace, because they know that the past that I had to tell them for the job applications. And then just the restoration, the restorative power of Jesus Christ in following after Him and just dedicating your life to Him. It's just, life is never the same. You know, there's no going back from there. But yeah, I met Brandi, and then yeah, the rest is history. So tell us a little bit about you.
A little bit about me. Well, I am from Indiana. I am what you would call an Air Force brat. My dad was in the
She's
Air
still a
Force.
brat.
I'm still a brat. Thank you. But grew up kind of traveling quite a bit, anywhere from Germany, from North Dakota, and eventually landing out here in California, San Diego area. And kind of grew up there with my family, and then eventually moved out to Travis Air Force Base. So I've been out here for quite a while. And we grew up knowing the Lord and knowing that He existed, but to say that I had a relationship with Him at a young age, not so much. I was more of a go to church, but then at home we were totally different people. So it was that lukewarm, not really, it just felt like a show for me when I was a kid. So I was in and out of youth group, had made friends, but it came to become more of the hangout instead of the go to learn about the Lord, and to actually just grow that relationship that I needed to have with Him. So I never really connected when I was young, and that resulted in hanging out with friends that wanted to do other things, anywhere from drinking to smoking to hanging out with guys. And that was where a lot of my downhill started. So I met somebody that ended up becoming somebody where I was at a young age sexually active, and eventually became a parent at the age of 15 with my firstborn, Alyssa. And during that time, being a young parent, my parents still kept me at home and helped me to raise my daughter. And during that time, I was also involved with the same man. It was an abusive relationship. So not only was I in an abusive relationship, I was a young mother, and at the same time watching my parents, their marriage fall apart. So to say that my family life at home was dysfunctional, so was my relationship with the father of my firstborn. About 2 years later, I gave birth to my second child, which is my son Jesse, at age 17. Abuse was still there, and it was actually worse than it was in the beginning. It got to the point that there was not a God, He was my God, and I put Him above all. And that's where my life was at. I would make every decision around Him. Every decision for my life and also my kids' lives were based around making Him happy so that we could be happy. And one day I just managed to break free from that, and started to gain some independence. And that's when I started working at the Embers. And I was there for probably a few years before I did meet Mike. And we'll tell you the story really quick. He met me in the back of Embers.
Yeah.
And he was the creepy guy that I got introduced to, and he freaked me out because he stared at me.
Oh, I couldn't take my eyes off her. She was so hot.
It was crazy. So he actually creeped me out a little bit the first time I met him, but it was really funny now that we look back at it. And you know, and he's right, a relationship kind of started there, and I did have to make the first move because he wouldn't. I had to do it. So
that's not true. That's not true. I made her want me so that she could not help but make the first move.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's how you reel them in.
But there's so much more that happened in between, and I knew of the Lord during that time of my life before meeting Mike. I knew that He existed. I knew the Bible. I read verses. Did I memorize any of it? Not a single part of it. Did I know some Bible stories? Yes, because it just some things I remembered. But there was no relationship there. So Mike and I started our marriage off with him praying for me, but me not praying and wanting this relationship. So it was totally the Lord knowing. It was just totally all Him. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah,
it was all completely, because I wasn't looking for it. I was dead set on saying, you know what, I don't think I could ever marry. It's just not gonna happen. And if I do, I don't know how that's gonna happen. I have 2 kids. I'm a young mom. So, but it's amazing how the Lord put us together. And it seemed in the beginning of our marriage that the Lord still was not a center.
No.
He wasn't a center for us.
No.
So, and we had gone through a couple of trials. actually quite a few. And
We had Trinity in 2001, and then Nicole in 2003. First 5 years of our marriage was pretty rocky, pretty rough, and that's because, like she said, we did not place the Lord as a centerpiece of our marriage. We did not have that foundation. It was like we were just two agnostics. We knew that the Lord, but there was no personal relationship really at that time. And then when Trinity was just a couple of years old, she was diagnosed with a potentially life-threatening genetic disease. And when she was 5 years old, that's when she went in for her first surgery. And I got to tell you, there were some people in this church, once again, that just came through and donated and prayed and just got to know us. And I think that's definitely a huge turning point in our relationship with the Lord now, because we were just like, man, something's got to change, we got to do something. And what we ended up doing was running to the Lord. And it was because of the love that we saw for people in this church that just loved on us, that didn't even know us. Mm-hmm. And I told Brandi, remember that we had Trinity needed a stroller and we couldn't afford it. And the church actually got the money together, purchased the stroller, and presented it to us. And it was right then and there that I told Brandi, I said, you know what, if this church can do this for us, then this is the church that we're supposed to be at. And we haven't left. That was what, 12 years ago?
About a while ago.
Yeah.
So that was actually kind of a pinnacle point for myself also, but I think for me it was more on a personal level for myself. There was a time when Mike was working 2 jobs just to sustain us so that I could be home with Trinity while she was going through this. So Mike and I didn't see much of each other, but he would normally work on Sunday mornings, so I would come to church by myself with the girls, with all the kids. And there were times that I sat in the back of our church, in the back against the wall, and I just did not want to be seen, but I wanted to be there. And the Lord worked on me so many times, and it was just amazing to see walking in there and during worship to be able to know that I could sit there and I would bawl my eyes out and just talk to the Lord, and there was no judgment passed by anybody that was standing next to me. If anything, they were hugging on me or talking to me after, checking in with me, praying with me. So it was important, and it was a big shift for me. One thing I can remember is during one of my prayers, and I've heard people say this before, but it was amazing, is that I closed my eyes and everything that I had that was on my heart that I felt was my fault, that I blamed myself for, that I built a wall up around myself for, I watched him erase it one by one like a video, just like this, back and back and back and forth. And I watched it all go away, and I felt the weight on my chest just release. So it's the Lord starting off my life in a way where I felt the only way that I could get comfort was in the arms of another, and it was wrong. And I looked forward to it, and even if it was abusive, I felt it was right. I ran towards those things, and I felt lost. So without the Lord, I was lost. I was damaged. I felt insignificant. And I just felt numb. So bringing myself back to church and surrendering not only myself, my marriage, and my children to the Lord 100%, and giving him full reign over our household, because that's what he has. He has full reign over our household. I have felt, I have regained confidence. I have become I feel better about myself, much more than what I ever did. Walls that I had put up that I thought nobody could ever tear down, including myself, I have watched him break and just watch them tumble. And so it's just amazing to go from feeling like a lost person that has no hope, no way to get out of anything, and feeling like I'm just basically going with everything like numb-wise and going to feeling everything, but feeling the love and feeling the joy and feeling the peace and the promises that only He can give us. And that to me is just amazing. It hurts to know that there's still people out there that feel the way that I did. And I hope that my story and things that I have been through and being able to bring Jesus' name to them and being able to talk to them about what He can provide and His promises and what they will do for them and how He's our advocate. He's the one that pulls for us. He's the one that will love us no matter what we've been through. So to me, that's just amazing. And we continue to see endless things happen in not only our marriage, our life. Our son, Jesse, who just turned 26, it'll be the 3rd year anniversary coming up here on April 15th. I remember it was Easter weekend 3 years ago that he was in his motorcycle accident, and it was an accident where he was wearing no helmet, had head injury, and they pretty much expected him to just die.
He was not expected to live.
And we got called, and we were the first ones to go and see him. And immediately Mike and I prayed over him, and we prayed and we prayed and we spoke life into him, and we asked the Lord to be with him and just take the whole situation over. And it was amazing to watch my son come back from death and watch the Lord bring him back, because it was a miracle, and it was all the Lord. He made it happen. So, and there still continues to be miraculous things happening, and the Lord working in our life, in our marriage.
Every day.
20 years married, and let me tell you, not every year has been easy, but let me tell you, every year seems to be better.
Yeah.
Right? Because not only do we grow in the Lord, but we become closer. We become more comfortable with each other, and it seems like we tend to lift each other more every year. We also, I hope, and this is what we work for, this is what we want to do, is we want to show to others what a God-filled marriage does, what it looks like. How you can live a life of happiness knowing that the Lord is over your marriage and knowing that you let Him have full reign of it. And to me, that's just amazing.
I agree with her so much. It's all about when Brandi and I decided to let the Lord have full reign of our family, of our relationship, of our marriage, when He became the centerpiece. That's when things really started to shift in a really, really great dynamic direction. And don't get me wrong, we're just two regular people. We're not like super duper power couple. We have same kind of struggles. We fight about money sometimes. We, fight over stupid stuff, and we have the same types of struggles and issues and problems as anybody else. But the difference is that we always have Christ as that centerpiece. He is that center. He's the compass. He's the compass to where when we look to that, He always points us back in the right direction. And it does. It just makes it better. 20 years strong, and it's better than ever, and I'm looking forward to the rest. So just a little word of advice. In your family, in your marriage, in your friend group, or whoever it is, just focus on having Christ be the centerpiece of that, and lean on His understanding and lean on His wisdom and ask for guidance from Him. And He's always, always, always going to set you in the right direction. There's not any one person in the world that can do it better than Jesus. And that's where we need to place our hope, faith, and our love. And let me tell you, your life will never be the same again after that.
Right.
So just wanted to say thank you guys. We love our church family. We love you guys so much. You guys have prayed for our family and prayed for us individually on so many different occasions. And I just want you guys to know that we pray for you guys too. We pray and we love you guys. And so we just really appreciate this opportunity to kind of let you guys get to know a little bit of where we came from, how we got to know the Lord, and what it's like now. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Community Alliance. We love you.